Ashe family, welcome back to another episode of my Unapologetic Perspective. This is the podcast where we give our point of view of controversial topics from our experience, Black history, and our knowledge as African Americans. Black history present lives in us so we can continue to excel into the future. It's one thing to know Black history, it's another thing to take advantage of what the people in Black history did for you. I am your host, Martre Baker Stevens, and to the right of me is Jaquan Battle.
Hello.
And to the right of him is Jerome Battle.
What's up?
We appreciate all the love and support we've been getting, the subscribers, the comments, the follows on all social media platforms. Much love to everybody that's showing love. How are y'all?
I'm good.
Been a couple of weeks off, but we're back. Where would you gentlemen like to start?
With your trip to the museum?
All right, so yeah, yesterday me and my wife celebrated early for our 5th year anniversary, and we went to Richmond, Virginia, to the Black History Museum. Fire. Wasn't that expensive to get in? Just $10 per adult. The first floor was pretty much information about the Jim Crow era and segregation, and then also local people right there in Richmond that had influence in the growth of Richmond, whether that's politicians, whether that's just school teachers or principals and all of those good things. A lot of great information, a lot of information that we've talked about on this podcast. We talked about the first Black-owned bank, those type of things. And then in the next room over was basically a lot of activism stuff that was fire. And then upstairs was pretty much all of the artwork, drawings and pieces put together by people of Black artwork, and that was just amazing. I got some videos I'll show y'all once this episode is over, but that was just amazing. It was just an amazing experience. Great visual. Really enjoyed it. And then after that, we went to a couple of Black-owned restaurants. My wife went and got some food. Nice vibe in there from the restaurant, and then I went to a vegan restaurant and got me some food, and that was fire. So nice way to celebrate our anniversary, getting out of the house, a little short trip, on no more than 2.5 hour drive up to Richmond, and yeah, fire.
That's dope.
Great experience.
That's dope.
Good. 5 years?
5 years. 5 years. You know what they say, if you make it past that 5 years, then you've done something.
Good.
I'm not gonna say we're good, but I'm just saying that reaching that level of 5 years that went by so fast, I believe that we're in a great place. We're in a great place.
It did go back pretty quick.
Yeah,
That's good.
You
I want to get to it.
you go ahead.
I want to get to it.
Let's talk about it.
I've been waiting on this for 2 weeks. Man.
Quick ISO, man. I'll let you go.
I want to get to it because I'm still asking that same question I asked on the last episode, and that question was, why does white America hate us so much? Why do white people hate Black people so much that they're willing in their desire to do ungodly things, inhumane things to us, always seems to rise above belief? Even though we're hearing about it in the news every day, it's still hard to fathom that it continues to happen. We're going to go back for a quick second. So according to your version of history, you go to Africa and you bribe other Africans to help capture Africans. You bring us to America on ships with inhumane conditions to where, according to white America's statistics, that anywhere from 2 to 4 million enslaved Africans died during trafficking.
Yeah.
And I'm using that word trafficking because that's exactly what it was. Mm-hmm. You bring the ones that survived the trafficking to America, in which you say 1619 is the first evidence of Blacks being in America, which we know that's not true. But anyway, we're going to stick to your narrative. But you didn't break us. You stripped us of our families and our country, our heritage, our culture, our land, our language, our religion, our legacies. You enslave us. You trade us. You sell us. You rape our women. You murder our fathers and sons. separate us from our families. You whip us. You work us like animals, yet you treated animals better than you treated us.
Mm-hmm.
You deprive us of education and religion, yet you didn't break us. You free us, not because it was wrong to enslave us, not because you felt bad for what you've done to us as a people, not because you wanted to attempt to make amends for what you did, but because you wanted to win a war. In a divided nation, but operating under the guise of United States, you then create black codes and Jim Crow laws to further discriminate against us, treat us unfairly and inhumanely. But you didn't break us. Even after redlining, public hangings, race massacres, and destruction of black communities, you didn't break us. As you fought against us, as we simply attempted to exercise our rights that was already granted to us by your Constitution, you killed us. You even killed white Americans who stood with us and fought for us, but you didn't break us. You brutally murdered a 14-year-old boy in Mississippi, Emmett Till, but you didn't break us. Since the civil rights movement and the assassination of black leaders such as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, to name a few, you also killed white leaders who attempted to assist black Americans such as Robert and John Kennedy. But you didn't break us. Since the 1980s, most police killings of blacks went unreported. From 1980 to 2019, black Americans were estimated to be 3.5 times more likely to die at the hands of the police than white. From 2019 to today, blacks are still 3.25 times more likely to be killed by police than whites. A black person is 5 times more likely to be stopped without just cause than white people. Yet contraband is found at a higher rate on whites than blacks in those stops. Bail decisions favor whites at a higher rate than blacks, even when the circumstances of the crime are very similar in nature. Right. The same for sentencing. Sentencing is a lot harsher for blacks than whites, even when the circumstances of the crime and the offender, other than color, are similar in nature. Yet you didn't break us. So I keep asking the question, what is it about us that make white people hate us so much that they're willing to go through to this extent to suppress us, discriminate against us, hurt us, kill us, even kill thriving communities like Tulsa, Oklahoma? What is it about us that make them hate us so much? And I think one time somebody said, well, we want you to raise your kids better. Well, when we have black families that are trying to raise their kids the right way, like A.J. Owens, who was shot through a door by a racist woman and killed in front of her kids. Mm-hmm. When we try to do the things that you say you would like for us to do so you don't hate us, you still kill us, or you still are prejudiced against us. You say, educate your kids. Well, when we try to educate our kids and we try to get the school system to tell the truth in terms of education, Governor DeSantis, you decide to change the curriculum. Mm-hmm. So I ask the question again, why is it that you hate us so much? Why do white people hate us so fucking much? And, you know, something that I hear Deion Sanders say all the time, and I think about black people, especially those that are in the celebrity light, but also think about aunts and uncles. We have so much pride, so high of a confidence level in everything that we do. And something that Deion Sanders always says is, don't let our confidence offend your insecurities. Mm-hmm. But also, don't let our progress offend your privilege. We're not asking for you to give up what you have. Right. We're not asking for more than what you have.
We want to be included.
We just want to be included. Don't let our aspirations and fight for justice and equality offend your comfortability. Yeah. We're not a threat to you. why do you hate us so fucking much? It drives me crazy. And every day we continue to hear about things that happen that shows that white America still hates us.
Mm-hmm.
That has not changed. You know, I brought up Emmett Till's, but just last week something happened to remind me of Emmett Till's. Now, luckily, she didn't die. But last week, September 17th, an 11-year-old Chicago girl was physically and verbally attacked by 2 adult white women. After hitting her with the bottle, they began punching her in the face and screaming racial slurs. Her eye was so badly damaged that it required surgery immediately. And they have other surgeries already scheduled for this 11-year-old girl. At the moment, no suspects arrested. It reminded me of Emmett Till. When you have adults that are beating a black child mercifully in public, you can see the level of hate that white America has for us, continue to have for us. You know, we can talk about the 6 cops in Mississippi that, you know, have been arrested for admitting to mistreatment of black inmates, or even black suspects that they pull over and how they treated those black suspects. And we can commend the system that has charged officers as of last week for the beating death of Tyree Nichols. All the officers were black. Mm-hmm. Now, it's still the right thing to do, regardless of the color of the offenders. It's the right thing to do. But only when the offenders are black is justice quick to do the right thing. When the offenders are white and the alleged suspects or the victims are black, you're not so swift to react. Another level of hate of how white America continues to show how they despise black Americans. Mm-hmm. And I just keep asking that question. And I'm gonna continue to ask that question. And I'm gonna continue every week of posting and talking about information regarding why white America hate black America so bad.
Do you have an explanation for it?
Other than the fact that I feel like their privilege is threatened, and the fact that the bottom line is, and this is the part that I think touches a lot of white Americans a little bit wrong. And what I mean by that is it does not apply to every white American, but it does apply to white America as a group. This country was built on white supremacy. Simple as that. They believe that they're better than us. There was 2 instances just this last week where white people lashed out the blacks openly in public. Strikers, people who were striking, they only lashed out at the black people as to say, you're not better than me, you're this, and you're that, and you're not better than me, and you need to work, and you need to take care of your family, but said nothing to the white strikers, just the black ones. Again, this is a case of where white America believes that that blacks are inferior to them, because this country was built on white supremacy. Everything about it, from the Constitution to the laws to how the laws are interpreted and enforced, is biased against black America. By design, white supremacy at work. That's why I think that white America hate us so much.
Blacks being lazy, blacks only want to depend on the government. Where did those things come from? Because, like I said, if you look back at slavery, how could black people be lazy? If you look at everything that we've overcome, how can black people be lazy? Where did those stigmatisms come from for black people?
Well, you have to even look beyond America. When you talk about one of the reasons why people looked at Africans as inferior is because of just the European-centric ways of looking at things. Now, we can get into all of the continent things of where Egypt is on the continent and who developed this and how Greece and Rome came in and did all these things. We could debate that all day, but let's just go back. Let's not go back that far. Let's just look at one of the main reasons why Africans was chose to be captured is because number one, they weren't European, and number two, they weren't Christians. So we could just look at the Christianity aspect of saying that they used biblically to try to paint the narrative that black people were inferior. Whether that's looking in the Bible at certain people and this is when such and such became a black person and he was cursed forever and the tribes and all of those things. That's religion and all of that stuff. So that's just one aspect. But even if you look into slavery, as we talked about on this podcast, just because somebody was not educated on Europe didn't make them ignorant. You know, just because I don't read and speak English or be able to do the things in white culture does not mean that I'm ignorant. It means that I don't understand your concept way of thinking because I come from a different place. That's right. So you had that narrative. And then after slavery, again, like Pop said, when we talk about systematic racism, we're not talking about just people. We're talking about institutions. Mm-hmm. And when we talk about certain things, when we say white America, we're not talking that white people are racist. Right. All of them are racist. What we're saying is that you may have inherited some racist things that you see as normal on a day-to-day basis that have absolutely no idea on how that affects black people. Right. Because if you grow up in a white household, you're taught all of these things about principles and white culture. And then when you get around black people, you say, oh no, that's wrong. You know, but unless you understand the black perspective, you won't understand certain things. There are certain written policies and procedures at places that people work at. The managers are following those policies and procedures, but not knowing that a black woman have to wear her hair a certain way is not the same as a white woman wearing her hair a certain way. The hair is different, right? So when we talk about the Crown Act, that's the things that we're talking about. When you talk about, let's just use policing. And we have to use policing because policing is one of the most racist things that came from the origins of America, which is slave catching. So when you talk about slave catching, you talk about from slave catching to the Fugitive Slave Act, so you talk about the slave codes, and you talk about all of those things that developed within the police system are still inherited in the institution that people come in and they go along with it. That's just because you think this is the way police do things, but not knowing the racism that's inside of that institution. So when you look at banks and bank loans, people say, well, black people need to do better with their credit to get a bank loan. That's not all it's talking about. That's right. You have to go back and look at the history of certain banks who did things just so black people couldn't get along. Mm-hmm. When you talk about black on black crime, because this is one of the things that white America does. They go to statistics. Well, a white person killing a black person, they say, oh, you guys are in the rage about that, but you're not in the rage about black on black crime. When we look on black crime, it doesn't exist. It's a poverty thing. That's right. And to understand poverty, it's not laziness. It's not the non-intelligence to develop something. It's the lack of opportunity to develop something because you was pushed in a certain area that didn't have any economic development. Why he said redlining, why he talked about the slave codes and segregation and all of those other things. It is a system that has been developed, and it's not necessarily just black and white. It's things that are on paper. You know what I'm saying? When Governor Northam was the governor, he said, look, there are things that's still in the books of Virginia that we ain't even banned yet that's discriminatory against black people. Absolutely. This is something that's not talked about. I want to shift gears for a second for you. Now, me personally, and we have to talk about this because this is a Black Culture podcast. I'm a 80s, 90s, early 2000s hip hop fan. No matter what new rapper I listen to, I'm gonna go back and listen to 80s and 90s and early 2000s rap. I don't watch a lot of award shows and all of that other stuff. I just this is not me. I like what I like, and I'm gonna go back to what I like. But looking at the hip hop 50th anniversary, right? Mm-hmm. I'm just seeing a lot of different acts coming out, performing, and it just seems like it's repetitive. Right. The same. I know New York is the Mecca. We know the origin story. We heard Jazzo talk about it on this podcast. Mm-hmm. We know what the Mecca is. And as much as I love New York rap, I feel like I haven't seen a lot of other people get their just due. Who are some people you feel like haven't gotten the recognition from hip hop or 50, whether that's what they brought to the culture or just artists in general?
The biggest one, which is Atlanta, down south, Texas. You got the Bay Area, West Coast, and the biggest one for me is the Midwest. Like Nelly,
Yeah.
you know, who basically pushed Air Force Ones to black kids. So I think what's happening is you're getting people from New York doing the hip hop 50.
Yeah.
Like Nas and Mass Appeal, the one that they put
Or
on
non-black
at,
people doing hip hop 50.
Yeah. I think the one Nas and Mass Appeal put on was probably the best one. But still, Atlanta gets left out of everything for some odd reason. I don't know why, but if you look at Atlanta's their impact on hip hop from the 90s all the way up until now, I mean, it's basically shift gears to hip hop is in Atlanta, to be honest.
Right.
That's where hip hop is at. But I think that's what it is. A lot of people that's doing these are the white infrastructures that only know what they know, and then you got people that only do it that's from New York, so they only including the New York artists.
But do you think that Atlanta had its own sound? So we talk about the Midwest, we talk about West Coast, we talk about Eastern, which would be New York, Philadelphia, New Jersey rappers. Mm-hmm. Did Atlanta have their own sound? Even Miami had their own sound, right? Did Atlanta have their own sound?
Yeah, I think I can't speak to like the Outkast aspect of it because as great as
Outkast had their own sound.
Yeah,
I think that's what the origin is.
As great as hip hop is, I'm just not an Outkast fan. But
because when we talk about location, right? I don't know if you guys saw Ice-T's version, because he is part of the 50th. And I think that what he brought to rap overall, I think it had to be included in the 50. And I'm not an Ice-T fan, the rapper. I'm an Ice-T fan, the movement.
Right.
Because he opened the door for what people call now gangster rap. Mm-hmm. And I don't think people really understood what he did. Because a lot of people didn't like him because his style of rap was so drastically different than anybody else's. And by his own admission, he struggled sometimes to rap on beat. Mm-hmm. But what he did, he opened the door for gangster rap. People don't remember, even when you listen to NWA, Straight Outta Compton, he was the first one to mention, they were the first ones to refer themselves as a gang. Mm-hmm. And that's where gangster rap began. But if it wasn't for Ice-T, that never happened.
Right. Would you say gangster rap is a subgenre of hip hop?
Absolutely. And I'm not even saying that I'm a fan of it. I was then.
Yeah.
I was a fan of it. But I also want to, since we go here, I want people to think about something else too.
Let's talk about it.
Why did gangster rap become popular? And this is the part you guys this was probably a little bit before your time or right when you really, because I know you guys listened to what I listened to when you were kids. But what happened with gangster rap is white America had an opportunity to decide what they thought was the best message to be sent from Black America. They had two choices. This is the part that
I think I see where you go. I think I see where you go.
People wrong.
I think I see where you go.
We can even talk about being woke and empowering the Black people.
Yeah.
Or we can talk about gangster rap and let you motherfuckers kill yourselves.
Right.
And they said, we're gonna let you motherfuckers kill yourself. We're gonna promote gangster rap. We don't want to hear no more Public Enemy. We don't want to hear nothing about Black people stay powerful, stay righteous, learn your ancestors. We don't want to hear that shit.
Right.
Talk about killing each other. Let's go. Come on, NWA, bring it on. That's what happened. So from there, during an era where it was starting to be a message sent to Black people, all of a sudden goes to get your gun, get your weed, get your bitches. Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
That's what happened. So when you talk about the 50th, you're not going to hear people talk about that. because a lot of people don't want to admit that white America had a say in that.
Right.
We would like to believe that we controlled hip hop. We did not.
Right.
We didn't control it.
We still don't control
We
it.
still don't control it.
Mm-hmm. That's why I said I knew you was where you was going, because you talk about all the time with the election that Obama didn't win because the black people voted for him. So here's the thing. Gangsta rap got popular not because we all like it, it's because the white kids like
absolutely.
it.
Even back then to this day, and I know we're just gonna be real, especially today, you don't see a lot of black people buying no fucking CDs.
No.
Right? You illegally downloading somewhere, you getting that shit, right? Let's just be honest. But even up to today, the biggest buyers of hip hop are whites between the age of 14 and 21.
Right.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
So we know they controlled the buying market for what became famous.
Right.
But who marketed it?
Yeah.
You know? So we can talk all day long about the 50, and I agree we need to be doing it, and I like it because I want people to understand where rap has started and where it is now, because in the beginning people didn't think it was going to last this long.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, people thought hip hop was a phase because people thought hip hop was music.
Right.
And it is not.
It's not.
It's a culture.
It's a culture.
And the music is just part of that culture.
And it, to answer your question about does Atlanta has their own sound, that's why I asked you is gangster rap a subgenre, because that's what I feel like Atlanta has did for hip hop. It gave us at least 5+ subgenres of hip hop, starting with Outkast, where it was a little different. You know, they might not have been on beat, or you have Big Boy off beat, and then Andre come in and be on beat, and it's totally different. And then you have the era from about 2000 into now, what's that, 23 years of them having a different subgenre for hip hop that's running hip hop basically.
Yeah, and you know the 50th is really based on the origin of hip hop, and that's why it's mostly your East Coast rappers, Philadelphia, New York, New Jersey, is because those rappers were here. A lot of them that you see in the 50s was here when it started.
Right.
You know, all the way back to Kool Herc. They were here. So they were a part of it before they became a part of it. If you listen to Nas, every time he talks about hip hop, they talk about the parks. Mm-hmm. See, and I think, so when you look at even West Coast, when you look at Miami, you look at Midwest, you look at Atlanta, they don't get to talk about that because they weren't part of that, right? They can talk about where it started for them,
right? But
they can't talk about where it started for rap music per se or for hip hop. Only those rappers that were there and a part of it, that saw the culture or saw remnants of the culture or came into existence by people who were part of the culture. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So they lived it. So it's a little different for them.
That's like when you hear New Orleans people talk about the bounce music, and the history of bounce music is probably how their hip hop came about.
That's right.
Is the bounce.
The same way with gangster rap. Even though, I'm just going to be clear, there were some East Coast rappers that was rapping gangster rap before there was an NWA.
Yeah.
Coogee Rap talked about robbing people on subways and all that before there was a gangster rap from West Coast. So, and I'm not saying that they originated it. I'm saying that they made it popular because white America had a decision. And they decided we're going to promote that versus this woke shit. Because we don't want... See, that was a platform. See, rap became a platform for black people to communicate with other black people. Mm-hmm. And the content, the narrative of that communication was something that white America didn't want. Couldn't have it. I advise people to, I believe it's Kool Moe Dee. Google Kool Moe Dee's narrative about gangster rap versus woke rap. And I think he gives a really good narrative about what happened.
That's funny. I never thought about hip hop like that is them communicating to other black people.
Absolutely.
So now I can see why, as you get older, you start and you hear the younger rappers and you like, I don't want to hear that because they're not communicating to you. They're communicating to their demographic.
I know everybody thinks about Sugar Hill Gang with the first release of what a lot of people consider the first rap song on the radio. the hip, the hop, the hippie. Everybody knows that. But people forget about Grandmaster Flash and Furious 5 with the message. And if you think about, just want people to Google the message. Because the message was what the platform could have been used for. And that's the direction it was going at one point. Yeah, it was created to have fun, give black people something to do. And then people realize, you know what? We're misusing a media opportunity. Mm-hmm. And we need to change that. I have a microphone. Think about the media. What is the media without a microphone? Nothing. You don't get even in the day of age where people did a lot of reading, the microphone was still the most popular form of media that existed. So as a rapper, you have an opportunity to reach a lot of people. What do you want them to know?
It's basically like our pig Latin.
Absolutely.
But then we sold it, and now we no longer own it. So,
well, I think that's my biggest problem as I reflect on Hip Hop 50. That it is the microphone, which is getting your message out there, because it's the biggest platform in the world now, which is hip hop culture, and we know hip hop culture is a synonym for black culture. Mm-hmm. And when you look at literally, I'll hate to put her on this, but on the way to Richmond, I had to put my headphones in because my wife was listening to music and these female rappers, and every last song was a sexual song, right? And then I've seen comments where people on social media like, yeah, all of these females are talking, about sex today, but that's no different from Lil' Kim back in the day, Dina Howard back in the day, or the rappers talking about drug dealing and guns and killing each other from back in the day, like it's still today, like why y'all just harping on the women? And my problem with that is, yes, all of that is true. But my problem is, as you get older, just because it didn't necessarily affect you personally doesn't mean that you want the same thing for the next generation. You know what I'm saying? Because I remember being, listening to certain music and people, adults talking about how that was going to affect us. Mm-hmm. And it may not have affected me personally, but I do know a lot of people that it did affect. But just because it didn't land me in prison or have me killed or any of those type of things doesn't mean I should want that same thing for the next generation. Mm-hmm. Because those rappers that are the media platform for black people, we listen to music more than we listen to anything else. You know what I'm saying? We watch our favorite artists more than we watch anything else. And their message is important. I'm not even blaming the rappers because, like you said, we don't control hip hop. Mm-hmm. So if that's one way for you to change your life and make money, you get some 17, 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid. And now that's what we have. We have kids now that are, back in the day, we just had a little Bow Wow. Right. Now all of these artists are 16, 17, 18, 19 years old. They're kids. And if I have the opportunity to change my life and my family for a few $1 million and I just got to rap about sex, money, and drugs, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And just because it's normal in hip hop culture, as we look at our 50th, I believe that we in the culture have to make some changes for it to continue, for it to survive another 50 years.
Rap is no different than any other genre of music. And I think it's important that people understand that it evolved. Mm-hmm. We are where we are because rap evolved just like any other genre. I often think when you think about the lyrics, they actually say the words in rap, where before they couldn't actually say the words, so they use euphemisms, right? Mm-hmm. Think about Marvin Gaye, "Sexual Healing." Come on now, the most sexually provocative song in the history of R&B, probably, right? Except he just didn't say the words, right? But is it any less intriguing for a listener? You think about some of the songs that you guys grew up listening to. What was the song that you guys used to always sing?
Intro?
Yeah.
I mean,
we didn't know what that was, though.
Exactly. But it was an R&B song, not a rap song.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes rap gets the responsibility of all music when it shouldn't.
Right.
Only because it's the culture of black people. And I think that's unfair to the culture, one.
It is.
But I think it's unfair to those that are using it as a platform for whatever they want to use it for. Because I think about a lot of people like Queen Latifah. I think about Ice Cube. I think about these folks, LL Cool J. I think about these folks that started in rap, but then went somewhere else to do other things that was not associated with rap.
Right.
So they use it as the platform. And I'm not saying it's right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm just saying it's no different than a sport. That you have people that focus on this sport and they're being used by whatever sports facility that is, whatever establishment embraces them, so that they're able to make more money to make a difference like LeBron James is doing, right? It's no different. I hate when we put all of the pressure on one aspect and not share the responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Should R&B singers not be held to the same standard as a rapper?
Mm-hmm.
Of course they should. What about country music?
Mm-hmm.
What about rock and roll? Right? I don't want people to always point out the culture of the black people and only associate that to rap.
Right.
I don't like when we do that. Do I agree that we should use that as a platform to do better? Yes, I do. I do think we should. But what sells? So in order for us to use it as a platform, I got to do something that's going to make me money in order to do the other shit that I want to do.
Right.
And if you motherfuckers going to buy music that's talking about killing other black people or sex or whatever, then I got to do that.
Right. That's why I said it's not the rappers, it's the audience.
That's right.
Because people are, this is what, if it's working, people are buying it.
That's
So
right.
it's working not because it's what I'm saying, it's working because this is what you want to hear.
That's right.
I'll shift again. I want to go back to an old case. Tamla Horsford. For the people who don't know, Tamla Horsford was a wife and a mother of 6. She had 5 sons and 1 stepdaughter. The family moved to Forsyth, Georgia back in 2018. For the people who don't know what Forsyth, Georgia is one of the most racist towns that you could probably think of, to the point. And in 1912, they literally drove out all of the African Americans that were in town. And that lasted till about 1987. And now today it's about 4% black. But back then, Tamla received an invite to an adult slumber party by a woman named Jean. She had known Jean maybe just a couple of months. Their sons played on the same football team. And at this adult slumber party, it was supposed to be all females getting together, basically having a good night without worrying about responsibilities and all of those type of things. But at the slumber party, it ended up being 10 females and 2 males. Her boyfriend ended up staying, and another lady's husband ended up staying. And as a gift, Tamla brought a tequila bottle, her favorite tequila, to Jean for a gift. And witnesses say that that kind of upset Jean because she couldn't stand tequila and the way that it smelled, and basically talked about it all night. Around 10:30, she FaceTimed her husband and kids. The husband still never knew that 2 other men was at this place, because we know as black men, if our wife is at a slumber party and men are there, it changes the concept, right? 2 women ended up leaving early because they had to work the next day, and the rest of the women played a card game called Humanity, which is, most people call a vibe killer, because it can get real intense, because people can be offended by the questions that's asked during this game. At 12:45, 2 women were super drunk, so they went upstairs and went to bed. At that time, Tamla wanted to go home, but Jean insisted that Tamla stay. After a while, the only 2 that was left up was Tamla and this woman named Bridget. And Bridget called her husband to pick her up. And then after that, Bridget said before she left, Tamla said that she was going to have some more gumbo and smoke a cigarette, and then go back inside. A security system notified Jean every time a door opened in the house. At 1:47, a door opened, which was Bridget leaving with her husband. At 1:50, alert goes off that the door is open, which is, people assume, is Tamla going outside to smoke. At 1:57, the door was open again, but never was closed. At 4:10, the front door opens and closes. This is the time another lady said that she left to go home. At 7:30, it opens again and another woman leaves. At 8:45, Jean's aunt come downstairs and looks outside and see Tamla laying face down in the yard. Here's where it gets murky. She sees her laying face down outside in the yard.
In the morning.
Mm-hmm. And she says that what she did was she got on her knees and prayed.
Really?
Red flag, number one. Then she still don't go outside and check on her. She goes upstairs, bangs on Jean's door, doesn't get an answer. So she runs back downstairs, look out the window to see if Tamla has moved, then runs back upstairs, bang on the door some more. Then finally, Jean told her to come in, and she's sitting up with her husband in bed. I think it's her boyfriend. Her boyfriend in bed. When they go back downstairs, they call 911 from the balcony.
Ain't even go check.
Nobody went there to check her. They call her from the balcony. And Jean tells the 911 operator that they were drinking last night and maybe she fell off the balcony. The 911 call had no emotion, no urgency, to the point the operator was like, have any of y'all checked to see if she's breathing?
Nope.
So Jean, instead of her going down to check, this is her party. This is supposed to be her friend. She invites her. She gives her phone to the boyfriend. The boyfriend goes downstairs and checks. Pause the story again. The boyfriend is a probation officer working outside of the sheriff's office who is certified in CPR. How he checks is checks her leg to see if it's stiff or not. And said, nah, I don't think she's living. Right? When Jean was on the phone with 911, she said, send an ambulance and a police officer. If you think she tripped off the balcony, what the hell you need a police officer there for? You should just need an ambulance, right?
Right.
At one point, they had put, the boyfriend had put the 911 call on mute for 18 seconds. The first responding officer, Corporal Miller, comes down there and pronounces her dead and cancels the EMS. Notice I said a police officer showed up and pronounced Tamla dead, not a medical professional, right, and canceled EMS. And they said that the conclusion was Horsford got drunk and fell off the balcony after everybody went to sleep. Now her blood alcohol level was 3 times the legal limit. She had traces of marijuana and an anxiety medication of Xanax in her system. They did admit to they were smoking marijuana that night. And a lady did have Xanax, but she said she never gave Tamla one because she only gives the Xanax that she had to people that she knew, and she didn't know Tamla. So she didn't give Tamla Xanax. And Tamla's family said that she didn't have any Xanax or had ever used Xanax before. She was also found underneath the balcony where she supposedly fell from. So physically, the only way she can be found kind of underneath the balcony is if the body was moved. The lead detective, Michael Christian, echoed that theory, telling the medical examiner the position of the body does not appear that she had fallen from the balcony. And also doubted that she fell from the balcony at all, according to her injuries, and felt that the body was moved. This is the lead investigator, and we'll get to him in a second, but this is what he believed. Christian also told the GBI, because the GBI investigated it a couple years later, that the boyfriend, Jose Barrera, and the lieutenant investigator, Kalen, had a phone call with each other prior to calling 911. An independent autopsy done by the family said there was no evidence of any significant injuries to the skull and bones that would be consistent with a fall. She couldn't have catastrophic injuries fall from the balcony and ended up where she did. She had defensive wounds that were not accounted by either Forsyth County deputies or the GBI. Her arms were spread out, almost if there was palms up. Now, anybody that knows if you fall from a significant height, you're gonna try to break your fall. The crime scene was never preserved. They didn't even interview all of the women there. it was immediately treated like it was an accident without any type of investigation from step one. Let's go back to the initial investigator, Mike Christian, lead investigator. And this is what we talk about when we talk about that system, right?
That's right.
Of course, he knew the boyfriend, the probation officer. Of course, they're officers, right?
That's right.
In this town. But he also sent Snapchat messages to all his mistresses. He had a few. And about his wife's death and how he conveyed this message over to the husband. He said, I should have told him, have fun memories with these 6 boys who are now going ape shit. As if this is funny. No integrity, no professionalism. He repeatedly called Tamla Horsford the porch lady. He eventually had to resign through a lot of racist stuff that he was doing. He's also accused. You also had the other investigator, Andy Kalin, who's also good friends with Jose, the boyfriend, said he backdoored information to Jose as this investigation is going on. Jose knew about the autopsy report before Tamla's family did, who was also friends with the coroner. Now, the coroner got fired from his last job because he was posing with pictures with racist minstrel dolls, blackface dolls. That's right. You also had the sheriff of this town, Ron Freeman, who tried to cover up that coroner's termination at another place, but he got caught and he was forced to resign, but he still made sheriff where he was at. And Jose Barea, the boyfriend, he was fired from the sheriff's office for accessing information about Tamla's case. And when you look at all this, even if Tamla's death was an accident, when you look at the way that this was handled, how the police and some of these people were friends. One of the police officers says, oh yeah, I know your boss because she's my wife. So you ain't got to worry about getting to work on time.
That's right. When
you look at Mike Christian, the lead investigator, his racism. When you look at the coroner, his racism. When you look at the lead investigator, one of the lead investigators, when you look at his relationship with the probation officer, the boyfriend, when you listen to the 911 call, when you put all of these things in perspective, even if it was an accident, there was a cover-up somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. Whether it's the position of the body, whether it was an accident and they moved the body outside to make it look like that, there was some type of foul play in there that should have correlated to some type of investigation.
There was some bias against the victim, obviously, which is the systemic racism part that we talk about.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what that reminds me of? And I always like to bring this case back up. Yeah, you remember the case of the Kendrick Johnson?
Yeah.
They found the body rolled up in a gym mat. Ironically enough, was in the same state of Georgia. And the same thing was going on, that the cover-up, the systemic cover-up, was biased against Kendrick Johnson.
Right.
He had an argument earlier with a boy who had a brother, and he and his brother both were in the same class, a gym class with Kendrick Johnson. And the first investigator to show up at the scene was a detective who was these 2 boys' father.
Yeah.
Very similar. And to think that, for anybody to think that this is isolated, because we could talk about this all day. We could go pull cases in multiple states and talk about this all day. We could probably talk about this for a month, doing podcasts every day.
Yeah.
So for people to think that these are isolated incidents, yeah. No. Systemic racism is alive and well in this country, and it's based on one simple principle: white supremacy, which is what this country was built on.
Absolutely. Anything else you want to talk
about? Just some quick hitters real quick.
Right.
Leonard Mack has been exonerated for nearly 5 decades after was wrongfully convicted of rape, the longest wrongful conviction overturned by DNA in U.S. history. It was for a rape in 1976 and a criminal possession of a weapon conviction. Mr. Mack's case makes history. And the day he got exonerated was his 72nd birthday. This is a big one. We've talked about this numerous times on this podcast. It was even brought up today. Oprah and Morris Chestnut is shedding light on Tulsa's Greenwood district. 6-part series, Rebuilding Black Wall Street. It documents the ups and downs of 2 construction teams as they rebuild the area. It's coming on September 29th, so I don't know when y'all watching this, but it'll be next week.
Yeah, they got to get that land back from Oklahoma State.
Yeah,
Oklahoma State owns
right.
most of that land.
It's done by Oprah. And not only will it focus on the tragedy of Tulsa, but it will highlight the efforts in the current community trying to rebuild it. Right now, it's 3 survivors left, and they're still waiting on reparations. Nas dropped another album, Magic 3. It's probably my favorite out of the trilogy of Magic. I know last time I talked about Magic 2, I seen in the comments where people were saying it wasn't long enough, and I clearly said, if you're looking for the longer version of Magic, go to King Diseases.
Yeah.
They are the longer version of Magic. This one, Magic 3 is actually long. I want to say, first of all, pause that. I want to say it's 18 songs on Magic 3. Really good. I think it's going to be that last one. Nas and Hit Boy is going to be their last one together for right now. But as a rapper, to have 2 different trilogies going on at the same time with King Disease and Magic 3, that's just amazing.
He working.
Yeah.
He working.
And you don't have to. That's the crazy thing. Like, you don't have to do this no more.
The last one I seen on social media, I couldn't find any more information on it on Google, so maybe y'all can, but a South Carolina family teamed up to purchase their old middle school for $150,000 in cash, including 26 acres of land to build a community hub, content rooms, event space, and sports facilities. That's super big when we come together as a family.
Word. I'm about to look that up.
But yeah, I couldn't find any more information on it. I got that off Twitter.
I have to get out this because we do have to have accountability in the Black community. I think we have to be careful at who we call leaders and give out. We have to separate who leaders are and who people who give out good information is.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important. We confuse great content with great character.
That's right.
Or we confuse someone who was highly educated to think that they have high integrity as well. And that's not it. We talked about this with music. You have to separate the Bill Cosby from his work, the R. Kelly from his work. Like we have to separate. We talk about this in music. But it's different when you talk about information of leadership in the Black community. Brother Polight just was sentenced to prison for a situation involving a minor.
Mm-hmm.
And me, for one, I believe that Brother Polight is highly intelligent.
Right.
I've heard him in a lot of debates, and I've seen him walk the dog with a lot of different people when talking about things just for the Black community and religion and all of that stuff. He's a very highly educated man. But I believe that we have to separate information from the individual.
Mm-hmm.
I listen to Dr. Umar for good information, but I wouldn't trust Dr. Umar as a leader for the Black community.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? Brother Polight is an intelligent dude, but obviously he's not somebody that you call a leader. We have to be careful with that in the Black community. Regardless of how you feel about him, regardless of how you feel about his teachings and his beliefs, Minister Louis Farrakhan is a leader.
Mm-hmm.
He gives out great information. He knows what he's talking about, his belief system. And you can see that in the people who follow him because they become leaders as well. When you look at people like Reza Islam and all of those people, like when you look at how they carry themselves with high integrity and the values that they put in, that the Nation of Islam have given them. When you look at that as a community, you say, even though I may not be a Muslim, I respect what they're doing, and I understand that Louis Farrakhan is a leader.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't hate information. I take the information that brothers and sisters provide, but I don't expect them to lead Black people in no form or fashion unless they exude that integrity,
right.
those values, and that moral stuff. Like when you look at the civil rights movement after Dr. King got killed, there wasn't a lot of those people who stepped in Dr. King's place because even though they were intelligent enough, they may not have had those values to be able to exude leadership.
Like Jesse Jackson.
Yeah.
Al Sharpton.
Exactly.
Stop
You know what I'm saying?
moves, Jesse.
Not everybody can have that. So we have to be careful in the Black community who we give that label to.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? Who we give our money to. Who we think that's going to do something for Black people. Whether that's politicians, whether that's educators, whatever the case may be, we have to be careful in the Black community because we don't know these people personally.
Right.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? We don't. I didn't know Brother Polight personally, but now after you see that he's gone to jail, a lot of people that was around him said, "Oh yeah, we kind of was shaky about his character back then." Well, you didn't tell anybody. You put a camera in front. Yeah, you put a camera in front of him, and Black people thought this was a person that could help them. You know what I'm saying? And then when he got money, you saw the switch up of Polight. You saw the switch up of Dr. Umar. You know, you saw the switch up of certain things, but you got to be careful. And that's one of the things I want to talk about.
Yeah, you're right.
You're absolutely right.
But I would encourage people to get the people your TikTok because you put I don't know when you posted it on TikTok because I don't really be on there like that, but that joint had me glued. The last one you just did, I think about a little boy.
Oh, my unapologetic perspective. So it's talking about George Steiny, the first African American boy, the youngest person ever executed in the United States.
That's right.
You know, and then of course 70 years later, we know they vacate the sentence because of a lot of stuff in history.
Them. That's right.
We know what the system is.
The crazy part is when I clicked into because I seen it had 56 comments, so I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, that was two dudes who was arguing about something that had nothing to do with the video.
But the first comment that I seen was somebody told you, they was like, yo, I really love your content.
Yeah, shout out to him. He always show love. And I think he came over from Facebook to TikTok and following. So yeah, he always show love. We got a few different people who always show love. You know, they look for the content, and I love that.
Yeah, I feel like the podcast is your king disease and your TikTok is your magic, like Nas.
Yeah, because even with posting on TikTok with just the podcast, it doesn't always work because TikTok wants you to use their tools.
Yeah.
So they want you to use the green screen. They want you to use all of those tools.
And they want you to use CapCut.
Yeah. If you're just posting videos and you're not using their tools, they're not going to push it because that's not going to make other people use the tools to keep people engaged on TikTok. So that was just one of the little tweaks. So once a week I'll jump in and I'll just do a video for the green screen that's not with the podcast, but it's still podcast information. But love y'all, appreciate y'all, peace.